Morning, everyone. My name's Ruth McDougall, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the first of the programs here at APT 11 this morning. I'm one of the curators of Pacific Art here at the Queensland Art Gallery, Gallery of Modern Art. And I'd like to begin this morning by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Yagara and Turrbal peoples, to pay homage to their land, to their skies and to their waters, which flow just in front of us, and to acknowledge the incredible resilience that they continue to demonstrate, and creativity, actually, as they continue to walk these lands and welcome visitors to them. I'd also like to just acknowledge that we are kind of sitting under a very special artwork, a Bodhi tree, which is the sapling from the tree under which Buddha obtained enlightenment. And I'm hoping the spirit of that tree and the knowledge that was brought through that faith can join a little bit into our conversations today. Travelling to us from across the vast geography, our panel today engages with the idea of art as a tool for not only reckoning with violent colonial histories, but for creating new pathways towards the future. Drawing on the histories of specific regions and their own communities, and even families, artists Bùi Công Khánh, Jasmine Togo-Brisby at the end, and Brett Graham each create works that open portals into the past and cast lessons into the future. I'd like to begin here in Queensland, and I wonder, Jasmine, if you could tell us a little bit about the history of your Australian South Sea Islander community.
Yes. Oh, gosh, such a big start. So I guess I'll start with this actual land, and our ancestors first came in from Vanuatu into Queensland in 1863. Brought into Mengen Port, 67 people were taken from Vanuatu. It was commissioned by Robert Towns, who's the founder of Townsville, along with a bunch of other business entrepreneurs. Our people arrived here in the port 3 months after their journey through from Vanuatu, and they were then shackled and walked out to Bow Desert, Bunjalung land, where they were forced to create the first cotton plantation in Queensland, which was unsuccessful, and then they tried the sugar, and that became what is the thriving sugar industry today. But also, that point is pivotal in the Pacific slave trade and how it became this highway between Australia and the Pacific for lured, forced labour to build the industries of this land. Is that good?
The work that you created for the Triennial Copper Archipelago is shaped to resemble the cross-section of a ship, which is formed to suspend as a ceiling. Why have you created this particular form, and what inspired that?
I use the form of the vessel all throughout my practice, and it's being Australian South Sea Islander, I'm always sort of trying to find this sort of place of belonging for our bodies, and because it's so often we're a smaller community, our history's been intentionally intentionally hidden, and so in that journey of just existing, I found myself looking to the vessel as this space of cultural creation. So, like many Indigenous cultures, and the the origin stories. Ours also started in darkness, and it was in the holds of those vessels. So that journey for our ancestors is that start of the transformation into who we are today. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. And the ceiling is embossed with patterns. Most people living in Queensland would be familiar with this kind of decoration in their home. Can you tell us a little bit about your connections to those kinds of ceilings?
So my great-great-grandparents were actually, they were taken in 1899 and they went into the port of Sydney, where they were then enslaved to a wealthy business family called the Wunderlichs. The Wunderlichs are still well known for their pressed tin ceiling company and their plaster rosettes, and their materials are heritage protected and restored in civic buildings all over Australia and Aotearoa. They actually had foundries in Aotearoa as well. And the legacy of their business is something, once I discovered who they were, is something which I tap in and sort of claim as material to insert my family into. So it's like our family is part of that legacy as well. Mm-hmm. So my granny was the house servant and grandfather was the yardman, and that's actually how they met, and that's how our family started. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Brett, the sculptures and images that you share with us in the Triennial also weave together collective and, in some cases, family histories. I was wondering if you could share how Tai Moana, Tai Tangata come about.
Kia ora, Ruth. Tai Moana, Tai Tangata literally refers to an expression: as the ocean rises, as the tide of ocean rises, the tide of humanity recedes. So that came from a particular exchange from the 19th century between a chief from our area and Taranaki. I was invited to do a residency at New Plymouth, and this work emerged from there. The two tribes that I was referring to endured the greatest direct confiscation of land, 1.4 million acres in Taranaki, 1.2 million acres in the case of Waikato. So that similarity in their response to colonisation and how the encroachment of settlers changed the whole landscape and their attitude towards resources also. It's interesting that you mentioned that year 1863, because that was the year of the invasion of Waikato. But I've been interested in looking at monuments and how those stories are told for a long time, ever since I was at art school. Above the art school where I was, there was a monument dedicated to the friendly Māori and the colonial forces. So, of course, if you're on the wrong side of history, you want to redress that history and challenge that history. Who were the friendly Māori or the loyalists and who weren't? So, again, it felt like we'd been written out of history. There was a prominent leader in Waikato who had advocated against conscription and told her people 50 years after World War I not to go to war, not to fight. And of course, every Anzac Day would roll round and everyone would be talking about their loyalty and so on, and we'd always feel excluded from those conversations.
The largest of the sculptures sees Tide of Wrongdoing towers some 9 metres into the air. In a way, that's the response to that, isn't it? Can you tell us a little bit about this work and what it represents?
Thank you. Well, we saw an image before of from that period of the 1860s. As I described it yesterday, it's sort of like an indigenous satellite. As a response to the warfare, when at the peak you had 18,000 British troops invading Aotearoa, you had they realised they couldn't defeat the British militarily, but they could perhaps through spiritual means. So turned to millennial cult if you like, Paimārere as it's called. And one of the images there, you see the people dancing around the new or the flagpole, or this new, which outstretched arms would reach ngā taiewha, the four tides, the four winds, ngā hauewha, and receive and give messages, sort of emulating the bizarre rituals that the British would perform. But the title, Cease Tide of Wrongdoing, I didn't feel entitled to use the Taranaki name, which was Tai Poro Nui, which is, the translation is Cease Tide of Wrongdoing. So that comes from the Taranaki settlement, when basically they were redressing or trying to seek remuneration for those resources that had been taken in that sort of outright greed. So hence, the tide of wrongdoing.
Khan, your work in many ways also responds to complex histories across, including warfare, across Vietnam, and the ways in which that has been understood and spoken about inside and outside of your country. In the Triennial, you've departed from ceramics a little, which is your main medium, to create a film, Bat Trang. What inspired this work?
Because yes, I would like to starting from when I'm graduated from oil painting from the south, but in the university is every year the student have to go somewhere to practical the painting, and so the school sent us to the Bat Trang ceramic village to the north, and so at that time we starting to have the overview about Bat Trang and to know about the ceramic village, because in Vietnam they have two big gate of ceramic villages. It's from the north and the south, and the ceramic style is totally different. Yeah, and the glaze and everything is different from the north and the south, and after that, year by year, I'm starting to fall in love with ceramic, and I come back to Bat Trang every year, and I spend time like 1 or 2 months, and starting to work in Bat Trang. But it's like in China, for the ceramic village, they keep the secret. They don't share the technique. But still now, in Bat Trang ceramic village, so you have to build strong relationship with the local, and then they starting to sharing the technique. So that's why from the beginning, I'm just use the vase is big already, and then I paint on. But recently, it's been like 15 years, so I'm starting to work with ceramic by myself. And my work is always, when I decide to go back to Hoi An, in my hometown, to become I want to spend more time with my parents. And that I feel I'm lucky because I spend more time, and I starting to understand about the history of my family, and also Hoi An is my hometown. And I find out that is one secret from my family, that is my great-grandfather from China. And and it's quite like, it's difficult for me, because in between China and Vietnam, and still now, the political issue is very sensitive. And that's why I understand why is my family hiding the background of the Chinese. So that's why I starting to researching about the maritime of Silk Road, so about the history of Hoi An, and especially about the ceramic from the shipwreck in Hoi An. So, and I came to the museum in Hoi An, and also one of the big Chinese ceramic collect in Hoi An. And I saw the all of the ceramic from shipwreck, and it inspired me a lot. And I come back to Bát Tràng, and I copy the technique from ceramic of that time, exactly the glazer. And I make the new one of my work. And I swapped into the ocean for 1 year. And I'm filming during 1 year, and the ceramic become very old. And but I make 2 copies. It's similar, but one is put in the ocean. And when I present in the gallery, I put them together. So I reconnect with the story about relationship of the ceramic history of Vietnam and China, because during the 15th century, so when as you see in the picture, that is the ceramic from Chu Dao. Chu Dao is one of the famous ceramic village, but now it disappeared, but used to be in the north. It's not Bát Tràng, but it's near Bát Tràng. But this period is very famous. Yeah. So all of this is from the shipwreck. And so this is my work. I make the new one with exactly the technique and the color from that time. And the Chu Dao ceramic is inspired a lot from China. Yeah. Because from the Ming Dynasty, in the one of periods of the Ming Dynasty, they closed the door. And they banned all of the boats to do the business, to selling the ceramic around the world. So they bring the queue to Vietnam. Then they organize like a Chu Dao, build the Chu Dao ceramic village. And that's why all of the Chu Dao designer pattern is inspired from China. And then after that, in the China, they opened the door again. And this village cannot compare the business with the original skill from China, especially in Qingdechen, in Jiangxi, in Bát Tràng, in China. Because the problem that the clay in Vietnam cannot compare with the high quality of porcelain in Qingdechen. So Qingdechen in China, they have a high quality of white or porcelain. So, but that is made like Chu Dao ceramic. It's very special. It's different, but it's special. And after that, that's why the Chu Dao ceramic village disappeared. Yeah. So, and then go back to my work. So I inspired from the designer, architecture from China and Vietnam, and to make my new work. And then, but it's when I present it, it looked like from the shipwreck. Yeah. And so through of this, I'm talking about the long history, the complicated relationship between Vietnam and China, and also my family. Yep.
That does remind me of something, Brett, that you said yesterday about art comes from a tension between 2 different things. And I think that exists actually in all of your work, that there's this kind of push and pull between different worldviews and trying to create space for voices to be heard. I think there's also an incredible attention and sensitivity to material. And Jasmine, it's been an amazing journey with you over the last year as you've made Copper Archipelago, and just watching your insistence on your own hand, which is not just about talking about labour and carrying that forward, but in a very Melanesian way, it's about connecting with your ancestors and keeping that thread. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just laughing and looking for my sister who works with me, who's like really resents the labour. As soon as you said that, I could just hear her swearing at me. Yeah, I don't know. It's there's part of it which is like incredibly practical, right? Like I want to know what a material can do, and while you can work with technicians who have done all this study and all, and know everything allegedly about a material, I don't know. There's part of me that's just like, no, there's other ways, and I just want to be able to push that material and tell and make it do what I want. And so yeah, and I mean, of course, like, you know, I'd say that my practice is like quite spiritual. Like when I'm working, I really do feel like it's like these portals open up, you know, and I really resist as much as possible like outsourcing my work, because I don't want to close that. And yeah, like how, but then there's this thing around, you know, you've got this human body which is needs longevity, and it's that tension. Like how do you come to terms with that, but continue working the way that you want to work. And so, yeah, I think with Copper Archipelago, one of the things was really insisting that I used genuine copper, and spoke to many fabricators who continued to tell me that it was impossible. And so this was a way where I appropriated the Wonderlic tiles. So the copper element that you see in my work, they're genuine Wonderlic replicas, which are created en masse today for not only like it's for heritage restoration, but also for people who want that aesthetic, right? And so I've appropriated their designs, their tiles, and then me and my sister Simone cast and moulded our own like motifs of our cultural background and our belonging and all those things, and overlaid them onto the copper. So I don't know if I'm really answering your question, Ruth. I am, okay.
Brett, I'm sure that a lot of that resonates quite strongly with you. Can you share a little bit about, I mean, the carving in Tai Moana, Tai Tangata is extraordinary. Can you share a little bit about the importance of that for you?
Thank you, Ruth. Well, these are aspects that I love about Jasmine's work, and I see in your work the emphasis on that property. And in fact, a lot of people would see Jasmine's work in the gallery, and then they'd come up to me and say, "Hey, I saw your work in." Sometimes. Shame. I go, "Oh yeah, it's wonderful. It's fine. I don't mind at all."
Just whipped it up.
I don't mind that at all. But yes, well, that's the thing with the show. So there were a lot of people who were involved in that work, and like the new pole. Well, actually, that's the interesting thing coming here, because people just assume that they're all done by CNC machine or by machine, and don't even question that the work was done by hand. They think you're completely crazy. But so I worked on some of them, and other people worked on some of them. I worked with a very good friend carver, Martine, who carved most of the new pole, because going between lots of work, so I would have not been able to have that sort of focus. And then the wagon. But then, as I say, there were about 15, well, I did most of the wagon, but so there were about 15 people that were involved in that whole project, from videographers to people casting the panels. But yes, I'm also intrigued and really fascinated with all of those crafts that have been lost, whether they're from Te Ao Māori or even Te Ao Pākehā, like again the ceiling panels and all of those colonial handcrafts that have been lost as well. So that is a theme in the exhibition.
Right. There also appears within your work to be a dialogue between different sculptures, often between light and dark, black and white. I was wondering if you could share a little bit about, that's that tension that you spoke about, right? A little bit about that.
Well, actually, it's supposed to be. It's not. It's supposed to be quite ambiguous. So, what is black is actually white. What is white is black. So, the symbol of hope or a doubt, which is also based in a lighthouse, which is a symbol of hope, welcoming settlers in, is actually a symbol of doom and future oppression. Or the wagon which is described maunga rongo ki te whenua, maunga rongo ki te tangata, peace to the land and to the people, is people describe it as a gun carriage or an object of war, whereas I always saw it as a symbol of peace. It's about celebrating te whiti and tohu and pacifist means of resistance, and then the wedding cake. Yeah. The wedding cake, which. There's an image that comes up. It comes from a turret that was very close to where I am, that was imposed on the landscape as a kind of a monument. That behind the beauty of all the colonial decoration is sort of hidden this history of violence. So everything is supposed to be ambiguous.
And that ambiguity also exists, Khan, in some of the imagery that you incorporate onto your ceramics as well. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, the patterning that you put on it and how that differs very fundamentally from traditional ceramics from places like Batrang.
Yeah. Since when I'm working in Batrang, so the main of in steel now, all of the pattern from Batrang is similar with China, but it contrasts with the political view from the people in Vietnam now. They're thinking about when the China they take over the island from the South Asia between Vietnam and also Taiwan and Philippines. So when we are a young generation in the university, we go to the street and make like revolution and talking about like give it back to us. But when I go back home and find out that it's my original, my great grandfather from China says how I feel. So I look back to all the pattern on the ceramic, and I say I have a question: why it still exists on the ceramic? Why we don't make the new thing, the new one? Because why it have to be there for like 100 years, and we cannot recognize us where it's come from, Vietnam or China. So that's why I decided to create the new pattern, also painting, and I want to tell the contemporary story of Vietnamese history around my work. But it's still there, the traditional, because the glaze, and you can see on the video we show, and the way people glaze on, it's totally unique. It's from Batrang, because in the Western style they spray the glaze, but in Batrang they use the turning table and put the glaze, and they fill out. But that is really good technique, because when it's turning and the glaze will be very perfectly covered around the ceramic. That is why you see the whole ceramic vase is brilliant. Yeah.
That sense of brightness that comes from the ceramic, does that have a particular resonance for you? Like, is that something that you want to be part of the message of your work?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And also, because I fell in love with blue and white, blue, especially blue. But we are always called that China blue, but that is not from China, from Iran. Because from the maritime obscure, the business merchant, they bring the blue color from Arab country, from Iran to China. But the China, they make that blue is famous because with the porcelain, high quality of porcelain engineering, and they make that perfectly beautiful. So, and in English they call us Chinese blue. Yeah.
There seems to be a strong thread throughout all of your work too around research. I mean, every single one of you, it appears, has done lots and lots of diving into archives and researching different histories. I was wondering, maybe Khan, you start, just, how important has that been to your development as an artist?
Yeah. It's the good question. Thank you.
In 5 words or
Yeah,
less.
I really want to express myself and also telling about the why I'm being the artist. Because Vietnam War. So after 1975, and when the Viet Cong will take over Vietnam, so my father, he had to go to the re-education camp because he participated in the South. And my mom is have to take care like 8 children without my father. It's really hard. It's hard. So that's why my mom never accept me to go to fine art school. She say, no, you have to earn money. But I know myself, mom, I love painting and I have to go there. Sorry. And yeah, and one thing is a big like have like big impression when I was a child, and I go to my hometown in Hoi An and I visit my aunt, the sister of my mother, and she have a hotel with 2 children, 2 boys. They died during the Vietnam War, but they're from both sides. They're from both sides. Maybe in the battlefield they kill each other. I don't know, but I'm look at the fate. It's so sad. I say, in the same family, they are brother. But the history is it always wrote by the winner. Yeah, and the left, nothing. That's why I make the artwork. It's called porcelain medal. So I make this to give to both sides. Yeah, and then from that work, my mom is understand.
Nice.
How hard is work.
Now she's your biggest fan, I'm sure.
Yep.
Brett or Jasmine, did you want to respond to that? Or Brett?
Well, most artists are quite stubborn. We're all told, don't do it, you'll never make money. So, yeah, and my father, who ironically is an artist, told me that every day of my life. Don't do it, you're not going to make money. But here we are. Yeah, so I understand. But also what you say about the winners always record the history. Well, that's so true. So when you say research, there's the research in the library.
Yeah.
There's the research in the archives, and then there's, which is important. And then there's also the research from all the oral sources, from, your family and that you grew up with. And they'll contradict each other a lot of the time. So that's why it's our job to tell those stories.
Yeah.
You know, certainly as Indigenous people, the need to tell those stories.
Yeah, amazing. I'm sure that resonates, Jaz, for you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying not to be too vocal. Yeah, totally. Yep, what Brett said. And just, I always sort of say that research is part of our cultural practice as South Sea Islanders. Like, it's searching more than research, but that's searching for those missing pieces, those missing links. Because, I mean, I'm fourth generation, but still, like, when there's so many things which have been lost intentionally or taken. And so, I mean, sorry, I'm just going to just shameless plug for Imelda Miller's Say Our Names exhibition up in Queensland Museum. For anybody who doesn't know who Australian South Sea Islanders are, please go upstairs and have a look at some of our collection, which Imelda has tirelessly worked on for I don't know how long, way too long, and contemporary art. Anyway, so that's in the realm of research, right? Because there's a lot of our documentation and things up there which we go to the collections and look through. On our celebratory and commemorative days in August, the collections will often do a special day just for South Sea Islanders, which you would have seen here at the State Library, and Imelda has organised far too many of those sorts of things. And so it's about teaching our people how to use those search engines so we can literally look for our ancestors. And, you know, they're quite special because it's complex, right? But they're closed down to the public and it's just for us, and that's a space where we can do that process, go through, or begin to sometimes go through that. So just as before I even began being an artist, that's my foundation. So I became quite obsessed with searching and finding the smallest of pieces that I could. And one of which has been really instrumental in works like what you see upstairs of mine, is a letter which was written from Mrs. Wunderlich to my granny, and it was stamped with their estate seal and also dated. So that's been incredibly instrumental in tracing my granny to a particular location and time.
Amazing. The title of your work, Copper Archipelago, comes from a Derek Walcott poem, which is about bringing together pieces or fragments. And one of the other things that I find about all of your work is the incredible generosity, actually. The willingness to share and to transcend pain and to reach out to others and to share those stories. Can you just tell us a little bit about that poem and why you chose that as a title?
I knew you were going to ask me this. I was like, read the poem again. I didn't read the poem again. But it's. I think what I want to say around that is we have a very unique identity here, Australian South Sea Islanders, and finding connection and belonging and seeing yourself. I'm talking about outside of our immediate communities, obviously. For me, it often comes with looking to people who are overseas, looking at other communities who've been built on their ancestors being abducted and forced into labour. And Derek Walcott is one of them, obviously. And you know, Pacific Islander, but slave diaspora is. What am I trying to say? Like, you know, like all of the Pacifica readings are incredible foundational texts, and speaks so much to the land and belonging and those connections. And when I identify as Pacific, which is always, it's...
Yeah.
I know that's not... Like, I go to Vanuatu, amazing, that's, you know, homelands, but I don't have that thing, you know? And same here. And so it's like that space of belonging often comes in relating to people who have been created like us. And so when Derek Walcott talks about the archipelago being the synonym for fragments, it just resonated so strongly with me in that it's a different lens to see, you know, because we talk about archipelago so much in the Pacific. And it's just like, oh, yes, that's how I connect to it. It's this fragment. It's this... it's different. Yeah, I'm great. I'm great, Brett. How are you? Here, do you want to do this? Your turn to fan. I'm lost now. And I think it's just on that topic of land. It's so I often see the vessel also as the land, right? Because I would never say like this is my land, because obviously like this is First Nations land, and while this is my home and our culture was created and born here, this is not our land. And I feel a similar thing in Vanuatu, and so I will often say that the vessel, the ship, is our land. And that's a personal thing. It's not speaking for the community, obviously, but yeah. That's all.
There's a bit of a ship theme happening, actually, in all of your work. But, Brett, we haven't spoken about your ship, the shipwreck that happened off of Te Namu. And the importance of that in the story of that work. I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that.
Well, that's the central image is Te Namu, and because of the nature of the gallery, of course, with so much light, it was very difficult to project that, have the video, but the image is central because so much happened on this part of the coastline. So there was, it had been a battle site between tribes, and then when the war started with Taranaki and the settlers, they put a line in the sand, put a line and said, if you cross this line, you'll be killed. So it created this dilemma. So then there was when a ship crashed into that part of the coast, it created a dilemma with the chiefs, you know, shall we actually do what we've said or shall we be merciful? And as it turned out, they led them all back to the town without harming them. But it created this dilemma which led to Diuahomene having this vision where Gabriel came to him and then created that religion of Pai Marere, which again is ironic because this religion is the boogeyman in New Zealand history of settlers love to hate it, Governor Grey condemned it, and yet it means good and peaceful. So I grew up with us practicing these karakia, not even realising that what we were practicing at home was actually what they'd written about in the history books as being the same faith, because the way they were described was so different.
Yeah.
So that's, again, emphasising what I mean between the difference between the oral stories and our research base being haka, ngamo tiatia, waiata, karakia, tau parapara, whai kōrero, all of these elements versus just the archive, just the library, just written accounts. Thank you.
Khan, does that resonate for you, that sense of, you've done lots of research, as you explained to us earlier, in particularly the technical aspects of the ceramics that you found in that shipwreck, but that side of that history of Chinese and Vietnam, and the way that moves through your family, is those stories. Has that been something that you've been able to go more deeply into as well?
So, yes, yes. I think we because we between in the political issue between China and Vietnam. So when I grow up, and I find out the answer. That's why the Chinese background family in Hoi An, they're hiding the background. And I'm starting to thinking about that and to have to get the answer through my artwork. So, and I'm starting to interesting about history, also from colonial time. Yeah, and especially from the work, in also in the video and also the vase with my new project through the Chinese time and also the French colonial time. And especially I'm focused for Vietnamese alphabet because in the 18th century, the Vietnamese still use the Chinese character. But some intellectual, they always want the independent in the culture, and they create the new language for Vietnam, but it's basically on Chinese character. It's called Nom. But Nom language also complicated. It's not easy for people. It's only for education people, high class people. And when the missionary from Portuguese, from Italy, from French, and they follow with the maritime of zero. And because Hoi An is used to be an important port, where the boats from China is come, exchange product, everything. And when I go back to Hoi An, I find out that the first Vietnamese language in Latin is from Hoi An. It's my hometown. Because the guy from Portuguese, his name Francisco Pina, and he write in the letter to Vatican, where last year I go to Lisbon to open the letter in the library, and he say, because for our mission successful, we have to create a new language, because the Nom and the Chinese character, it's complicated. It's only for high class people. So that's why he used the Latin mixed with, because Vietnamese language pronunciation is have many tones. And one word, but they have 6 tones, and then they totally different meaning. And he used Portuguese accent to mix with Latin and come Vietnamese language now. Yeah. So, and so back to your question, that's why it's my work is always around the history and the identity, and also focus from its beginning from this time I spent with my family also. Yeah.
I think we may be coming towards an end of our timing. I was wondering if there were any questions you had for each other. No?
Well, no, just so fascinating how complicated, complex the story is.
Totally.
You know, like all of those assumptions we make, how you reference your Chinese family, you know, it's not a black and white affair at all. It's your great-grandfather was Chinese.
Yeah.
So I found that really fascinating. And then just these objects, as you say,
Yeah.
the difference of the two and
Yeah, the present
your
and the
rationale.
past.
the present and the past, which resonates with that history. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Beautiful.
So, no, I love Jasmine's work, but I'm not going to go on.
You mean your work?
I don't have a question, but it's my feeling about your work. When I come to, I'm inside under of your work. I don't know, but I'm suddenly like lie down. It's like when I go to the church. So I have to under my knees and I just lie down. And I got that strong feeling because when my father go to education camp, and we all stay together at home with 8 children. My mom have to work outside, so we have to stay together. And we always, because in the small house, we lie down on the floor and look into the ceiling, and we have to imagine the story, and we tell each other about what we can imagination. So thanks, your work is remind me about my childhood feeling.
Far out. Thank you so much. That's it's amazing that's what you got from that, because one of the imaginings that I draw from in my practice is my imagining what my 8-year-old granny experienced not only when she was abducted and taken into the hold of the ship for 3 months, but also that moment when she's then out of the hold of the ship, but in this foreign home, and her first night looking up, after looking up at the underside of the ship for 3 months, then looking up at this wealthy plaster pressed hen material, which is completely foreign to anything she's ever known. And so thank you.
Please join me in thanking these 3 amazing artists.